Hi, I'm Abby from Ratings.com. Well, here we are! It's time for us to review Samsung's high-end OLEDs, starting with the S90D. Last year's Samsung S90C topped most of our TV recommendations due to its incredible value for its performance. Will this year's S90D match its predecessor, or is the D for dud? Spoiler alert, it's pretty darn good, but it does show some worrisome trends when it comes to Samsung's quality control. But before we get there, let's clear up some lingering confusion. In 2023, Samsung released the 83-inch model of the S90C with a OLED panel, when the three smaller sizes were all QD-OLEDs. We didn't love that decision, but it was likely made due to the lack of availability of any 83-inch QD-OLED panels. The same thing applies this year. The 83-inch S90D is also a OLED TV. But to make matters even more confusing, so are this year's 42 and 48-inch models. There was also some confusion around the main sizes, namely the 55, 65, and 77-inch models. Before the TV came out, it was widely thought that Samsung had decided to sell these sizes with either a QD-OLED or OLED panel, and you'd have no way of knowing which one you're getting before bringing the TV home. However, it looks like those three sizes might exclusively be QD-OLEDs. We'll keep you informed if anything changes on that front, but from what we've seen so far, this seems to be the case. We've personally bought and tested the 65-inch model, and it's a QD-OLED. Our results are valid for the 55, 65, and 77-inch models, so long as they continue to be QD-OLEDs. With that out of the way, let's jump into it. We'll get the elephant out of the room first. Our TV had a very strange issue. It initially appeared to us that its motherboard was crooked, making two of its HDMI ports unusable. After testing, we opened the TV to realign the motherboard, but upon doing so, we realized the problem wasn't as bad as we thought. The motherboard was fine, but the HDMI port cover was misaligned. To be more specific, the port cover's support bracket was pushed under the motherboard instead of over it, which is where it should clip in. We can confirm, however, that this is a quality control issue and isn't due to shipping damage. It's impossible that this was done during shipping, as you need to physically pull the HDMI port cover away from the motherboard to fix it, and this can't be done when the TV's back cover is installed. Our model is now fine, and all the ports are functional, but it's worrying that something like this could happen, and anyone who receives the TV in that state should return it. When the TV doesn't suffer from factory installation issues, it feels and looks premium. It's heavy and sturdy, and its small metal stand holds it firmly in place. This TV is one of the thinnest TVs we have ever seen. It's so thin that it literally ripples when touched. Of course, it's much thicker near the bottom where the inputs are. The back looks very similar to last year's Samsung S90C, but with a matte finish. As usual, there's a bit of flex near the inputs, but that's normal. The TV has covers to help hide the inputs and clips to help with cable management. As always, the inputs are hard to reach when the TV is wall-mounted. It comes with 4 HDMI ports, 2 of which point towards the side and 2 that point towards the bottom. These bottom ones were the problem children. The third HDMI port, which faces the side, also doubles as an eARC port, which is capable of passing through many advanced audio formats from Dolby. Unfortunately, it can't pass through any DTS audio formats, so you won't get the best sound while playing content from Blu-rays or DVDs, as they all tend to use DTS for their audio. The TV also has 2 USB 2.0 ports, 1 LAN port, a digital optical audio out port, and an analog audio out 3.5mm port. Finally, this TV has an ATSC 3.0 tuner, so you can receive 1080p or 4K broadcasts over the air, a nice feature for you antenna lovers. The TV comes with the 2024 version of Samsung's proprietary Tizen OS. It's very fast on this model, which is expected on a higher-end product. We did notice a few bugs, however. For example, the TV doesn't switch out of PC mode once selected. The label changes, but the TV is still stuck with the limited feature set of that mode. You can fix it with a restart or by hitting the home button, but that can be a little bit of a hassle. We expect this to be fixed soon, but it's something to note for you early adopters. Oh, and guess what? This TV has ads. Bet you weren't expecting that one. The S90D comes with the same excellent remote as other Samsung models, and frankly, we like it. It's environmentally friendly, it's got a solar panel on the back so you can just leave it next to a window when you're not using it, and it'll harness the power of the sun and never run out of juice. There's no numpad, but there are buttons for most popular streaming services. The remote also has an integrated mic that works with the Bixby and Alexa voice assistants, and so does the TV, so you can shout at your TV in all ways possible. Sometimes you just want to shout at your TV. Feels good, you should try it. Alright, we've messed around and had our fun, but now we're getting down to brass tacks. The image quality. How is it? Is it a worthy successor to the Samsung S90C? Sneak peek, it is. The blacks on this TV are no joke. They're extremely inky, almost black hole-like. The S90D just looks amazing in dark rooms. Plus, because of the self-lit nature of OLEDs, this TV has the equivalent of a perfect local dimming solution, with absolutely no blooming. If you've never seen an OLED before, you must see it to believe it. The S90D is extremely bright in HDR and matches other OLED HDR brightness champions like the LG G3, Sony A95L, and the Samsung S95C. It also barely loses any brightness when in game mode, which we love about Samsung OLEDs. So kudos, Samsung. Plus, since it's an OLED, it can emphasize bright highlights and HDR content better than any other display technology, so the lovely sun can show itself to you in all its glory. Not only is this TV very bright when watching HDR content, but it has incredible reflection handling. It doesn't have the S95D's matte coating, stay tuned for our review of the Samsung S95D video for that, but frankly, this TV is so good at handling reflections that it doesn't need that fancy coating. We've truly reached the era of OLEDs where you can watch them anywhere, no matter how bright or dark the room is. Unfortunately, the Samsung S90D isn't quite as bright in SDR. It's still bright though, and it looks good and can overcome glare in bright rooms, but SDR content is noticeably dimmer on the TV than HDR content. It can be jarring when you switch from one to the other, like when you're switching from SDR to HDR titles on your PS5 without having its auto HDR setting enabled. For now, LED TVs are still the uncontested champs of SDR content. Also, note that like many other QD-OLED TVs, this one has a pink tint when exposed to light. It's minor, but it's there. The viewing angle on this TV is near perfect. The image stays consistent even when viewed from an extreme angle. Spread your friends around, they can sit anywhere and they'll all enjoy a killer image. The good news continues. This TV is extremely accurate in SDR nearly out of the box. There are some very minor accuracy issues with blues being slightly overrepresented in most shades of white, and the TV's gamma is slightly overbrightened across the board. The color temperature is a bit cooler than it should be, even with the color temp setting set to warm 2. However, almost everyone will be satisfied with this TV's accuracy after only a few tweaks. And if you're not, you can get it calibrated. It's certainly not needed, but considering how expensive this TV is, it could be worth it to anyone who truly cares about SDR color accuracy. In HDR, this TV is superbly accurate. Darker shadows and midtones are a bit brighter than the content creator intended, but as you can see from the PQ EOTF curve, it follows the line almost perfectly. There's very slight roll-off in content mastered at 600 and 1000 nits, so it preserves some details and bright highlights. The roll-off is even better with content mastered at 4000 nits. This TV, it's accurate. Samsung is known for having colorful panels, but this panel just takes the cake. It's gorgeous and vibrant due to its exceptionally wide color gamut. It displays the full range of colors in the DCI P3 color space, and colors are super accurate. It even does an excellent job with the wider Rec 2020 color space, with only some highly saturated colors deviating slightly from what they should be. So let's hit you with a downer, or what counts as a downer on a TV that is otherwise so darn good. This TV isn't at its best when watching low-quality streaming content. Don't get us wrong, anything you watch on this TV will look amazing due to everything we've just said previously, but there'll be some macro blocking and low bitrate streaming content due to this TV's decent, but not good, low-quality content smoothing. Its image processing does a much better job with low-resolution content, as its sharpness processing when upscaling is very good. Details are clear, although small hard-coded text can be slightly hard to make out. But overall, very good. We always joke internally at ratings that OLEDs stutter because they're so good. The joke being that stutter is inversely proportional to a TV's response time, and the best TVs tend to have very fast response times. Ergo, the faster the response time, the worse the stutter. Ha ha ha. As OLEDs have a nearly instantaneous response time, they stutter more than LED TVs. The S90D is no exception to this, and as it's a very good TV, it does have stutter. Not everyone notices stutter, and OLEDs tend to have very good motion smoothing features, especially when you set them to a low level, so they'll do a good job of dealing with stutter without introducing too many artifacts. It's just something to note. Thankfully, the TV deals with Judder very well. It automatically removes Judder from all sources when watching movies or shows that are in 24p, even if they're in a 60Hz signal, like when watching content from a cable box. The S90D truly excels in games. Its response time is almost instantaneous, which is amazing for fast-moving content. Games, unlike most other content, also tend to run at high frame rates, certainly higher than 24 frame per second movies. So they reap the full benefit of the near instant response time without incurring its biggest inconvenience of stutter. Because of the sample and hold nature of OLED technology, there's still some persistence blur when gaming at 60Hz, but it's not nearly as noticeable as the blurring or smearing you get with most LED TVs. This TV also has incredibly low input lag. Seriously, this TV dips slightly below 5 milliseconds at 144 Hz and is just slightly above that at 120 Hz. Unless you're a superhero, you're not likely to feel that 5 milliseconds. When combined with this TV's response time, gaming is spectacularly responsive on the S90D. When it comes to supported resolutions, this TV supports most common resolutions up to 4K at 144 Hz on all 4 of its HDMI ports. However, there are some issues with 1440p, as that resolution works intermittently on the S90D at 120 Hz and 144 Hz. When disabling scaling from your GPU, this TV sometimes only displays 1440p at 120 Hz or 144 Hz in a cropped window instead of scaling it to the entire width of the screen. Strangely though, sometimes it works fine, likely indicating a software bug. 1440p at 60 Hz works fine, and 1440p at 120 Hz works fine when connected to a console instead of a PC. It's a bit peculiar, but we expect this to be fixed in a future firmware update. The S90D is fully compatible with everything consoles have to offer. It does both 1440p and 4K at 120 Hz, though consoles can't currently take advantage of the TV's 144 Hz max refresh rate. It also has full VRR support. It also supports auto low latency mode, so it automatically switches to game mode when it detects a console. The only thing it can't do is Dolby Vision gaming on Xbox consoles. Shockingly, this TV sounds decent. Now don't get too excited, this TV still can't replace a soundbar when it comes to sound quality, but it's still one of the best sounding TVs we've reviewed, and it will likely find itself at the top of our best sounding TVs article. It actually produces some bass? Incredible! Dialogue is clear, sound is well balanced, and this TV will be good enough for anyone who'd rather not have to buy a soundbar. It even sounds pretty good with a little distortion at max volume, although it doesn't get super loud. It's just decent, but we're certainly impressed. So, should you buy this TV? Yes. To be honest, we're bothered by the quality control issue we found on our unit. And this isn't the first time we've seen something similar like this from Samsung. But we can't dismiss how good of a TV this is. It's one of the best TVs on the market currently, and it looks like it's a worthy successor to Samsung's S90C, especially if Samsung keeps the pricing of the S90 line as aggressively as it was last year. If you're shopping for a TV right now at this moment, we recommend you shop for the S90C instead, as they're sold for a cheaper price than the S90D while being just as good. With time, however, the S90C will be phased out, making the S90D a more attractive prospect. If you're a movie aficionado, you might prefer to buy an OLED from Sony or LG, like the Sony A95L or the LG G3. The Sony is much more expensive than the S90D, but the Sony has much better image processing overall. Plus, it has Dolby Vision HDR support and can pass through DTS audio formats, which is needed for the best possible sound from your 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays. If you really want Dolby Vision or DTS, but just can't justify the high price of the A95L, shop instead for the LG G3. Normally, the S90 line from Samsung competes in price with LG's C series, but at the time of this review, the S90D is sold at a price similar to the LG G3. The G3 is a bit dimmer than the S90D, especially in game mode, and has a lower 120Hz refresh rate. However, it has slightly better image processing, and it supports Dolby Vision and DTS audio formats, making it a cheaper alternative to the A95L for movie fans. That's all we have to say about the Samsung S90D OLED. If you want a more detailed write-up on the TV, check out our written review. The link is in the description below. Until next time, I'm Abby from Ratings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Its image processing does a buh. Does a buh? It could be worth it to anyone who truly cares about SDR color accuracy.
The sound you just made.